one narrating your every move, judging your every step, and reminding you of that awkward thing you did 8 years ago. Yeah, that one. It isn't you. Sounds crazy, right? But hang on. If you were your thoughts, you wouldn't be able to notice them. You wouldn't be able to step back and say, wow, my brain is really going off today. Yet, here you are, observing it all, like someone watching a movie they didn't audition for. Now here's the twist. Even though you're not your thoughts, they still run the show. They decide how you feel, how you react, even how you see the world. And you just go along with it, like an actor, reading lines from a script they didn't write. Most people never even question this. They just assume that every anxious spiral, every self-doubt, every mental argument with the barista from last Tuesday is just who they are. But what if it isn't? What if you've spent your whole life mistaking noise for identity? And the scariest part, these thoughts don't just sit in your head. They create your world. How you interpret silence, how you experience love, how you handle a slow Wi-Fi connection. You're living in a reality that your mind filters for you without asking permission. So, who's actually in control here? Most people don't realize this, but your thoughts aren't trying to help you. They're trying to protect you. Protection doesn't always mean growth. Sometimes it means keeping you small, quiet, safe, and stuck. That's why your mind will whisper things like, don't speak up, you'll embarrass yourself, or you're not ready yet. Maybe wait a little longer. Sounds reasonable, right? But that reasonable voice is the same one that's been holding you hostage for years, hiding behind logic, wrapped in just enough fear to convince you it's truth. See? Your brain is ancient. It's wired for survival, not fulfillment. It doesn't care if you're happy, at peace, or becoming your best self. It just wants to keep you alive and avoid anything that feels risky, like vulnerability, uncertainty, or even change. And this is where things get sneaky. You start identifying with those thoughts, not just hearing them, but believing them. I'm not good enough. I'll always be like this. Nothing ever works out for me. These thoughts don't just pop up. They build patterns, habits, whole stories about who you are. Before you even realize it, you're walking around reacting to life based on a script that was written by fear, not truth. And the more you let it run, the more it rewires your brain. Because here's something wild. Your brain actually gets better at whatever you repeat. So if you keep feeding it anxious, negative, self-defeating thoughts, it will optimize for that. Like a Spotify algorithm that decides all you ever want to hear is sad, late-night overthinking playlists, forever. But here's the thing. The mind might be loud, clever, and persuasive. But it's not you. You're the awareness that hears it. You're the one who can choose whether to follow it, or finally hit pause. And once you start realizing that, you stop living inside your thoughts and start seeing them as they really are, just noise. Now here's where things get interesting. Once you realize your thoughts aren't you, and you stop letting them drive the car, there's this strange, almost uncomfortable quiet that shows up. Silence, space, stillness. And it freaks people out. Because for most of us, constant mental chatter feels like home, even if it's stressful, even if it's toxic. We'd rather feel overwhelmed than feel nothing. That stillness feels unfamiliar, and the unfamiliar is often mistaken for danger by the nervous system. So what do? We run right back to the noise. Scroll something, rewatch that comfort show, open an app, eat when we're not hungry, think just to avoid feeling. But in that silence, the one you keep running from, is the one thing you're actually craving. Clarity. You don't need 10 steps to heal. You don't need to master every breathing technique or solve every unresolved thought from childhood. You need space. Because space is the only thing that can show you what's actually real, not what your thoughts are narrating every second. Let's be real for a second. Most people never pause long enough to question their thoughts because they're too busy reacting to them. But the moment you pause, even just for a second, the illusion starts to break. That voice in your head, it's just that, a voice. It has no power unless you hand it the keys. But here's the trap. That voice is clever. It will say things like, well, if I stop thinking, I'll stop growing. Or, if I let go of my thoughts, I'll become lazy or careless. Nah, that's just fear, again, wearing a new outfit. Real clarity doesn't come from thinking more. It comes from stepping back, watching the thought, letting it pass like a cloud, and choosing not to grab onto it like it's the final truth. And here's where something wild happens. Once you stop treating every thought like it's gospel, you realize how much of your mental suffering wasn't necessary. It was optional, self-inflicted, even kind of dramatic, right? You start laughing at your thoughts a little. You don't believe all of them anymore. You give yourself permission to chill, not because you don't care, but because you finally do. Let's talk about identity for a second, because this is where things go deeper than just watching your thoughts. Your thoughts are not only loud, they're persistent. And if you're not aware, they slowly start building a version of you inside your head. Not the real you, but the story. A mental version of who you think you are, based on what you've been told, what you feared, what you failed at, what you've compared yourself to. It starts subtly. I'm the kind of person who overthinks. I'm always the one who messes things up. I'm just not good at that. And slowly, this script gets reinforced over and over until one day you don't question it anymore. You become it. You wear it like a uniform, not because it fits, but because it's familiar. And that's how your thoughts control you, not by force, but by repetition. But here's something nobody teaches us. Just because a thought has been repeated 1,000 times doesn't make it true. It just makes it loud. And we mistake loud for important. What happens when you stop feeding those thoughts? When you don't react the same way you always do? That identity starts to crack. Not in a bad way, but in a freeing